You are listening to How to Get Over Your Ex, episode number 155. No longer angry after an affair and 24 years of marriage. Welcome to How to Get Over Your Ex, a podcast on getting over your ex without it just taking time. I'm your host, breakup coach Dorothy. Let's turn your pain into power and your heartbreak into happy. All right, Bravehearts, for the month of August, we are featuring Braveheart alumni, individuals who have graduated from the Get Over Your Ex in 3 months or less program, who have fully embodied the more than move on mindset that we talked about in episode 151. These Bravehearts are going to not only share their wisdom and inspiration, but they will share with you tangible next steps from real life situations that they had during their journey to building a life their ex regrets leaving. All right? You are all invited to our free 2-day immersion event, August 24th and 25th, called More Than Move On, Build a Life Your Ex Regrets Leaving. I am so excited for you to join us. You can save your spot at www.breakupcoachdorothy.com/more than move on. All right. Without further ado, let's get to work. Here is our next special guest. Hello, my beautiful Bravehearts. How is everyone doing? I have a very special guest with you here today. Her name is Lisa. She is a beautiful, wonderful, almost Braveheart alumni. She is still actually currently in the Get Over Your Ex program, but will be graduating in about a month, actually on the date that we're recording. I think you'll be graduated by the time this airs, but so exciting. Lisa, go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and then just give us an intro to your breakup journey.
Oh boy. Okay. Thank you, Dorothy. I'm so excited to be doing this. This to me is full circle. It's like closure for me. So let me tell everyone a little bit more about who I am. My name is Lisa, and I'm 51 years young. I live on Amelia Island in the town of Fernandina Beach, Florida. So northeast coast of Florida. I live in a vacation town and love where I live. I have 2 amazing, beautiful, smart, talented daughters. They are 17 and 20 years old. And in my day job, I am a leadership trainer, and I'm also in human resources. And so that's a little bit about who I am. And it's funny because, being an HR and a leadership trainer and coach, I was like, man, I need some tools. I need some help myself going through my breakup. So you asked a little bit about my journey. My breakup journey is, it's like many people out there. I was married for 24 years, and most of those years were great. I can't lie. We had an awesome marriage for many years. We met out of college and dated and got married, and we were best friends. We were great partners. We traveled the world. We moved multiple, I think 8 total times for either his job or my job. And we were raising our girls, pets, all of it. And so I really had and have a great life. But a few years ago, my ex-husband started changing. And, people talk about this midlife crisis thing. Well, there's no other way to explain it. I think that's what happened to him, because he really started changing, everything, his personality, and just in general, his love for life just changed. He checked out of our marriage and even of our family, and was becoming pretty reclusive. And he used to be just a pretty carefree, friendly, outgoing guy, and he was just not that same person anymore. But I loved him, and the vows I made over 24 years ago meant something sacred to me. And I was not going to leave him, even if he was becoming an asshole. I mean, for a lack of a more sophisticated term, I was living with a completely different person who was becoming such, not fun to live with. And so I was committed to that. And then I found out he was having an affair. And that was just, it shook my world, because I never thought, like, if you were to read some of the love letters he wrote to me, you would never guess in a million years that this man was capable of having an affair. And not only that, it was during a time where my mother was dying of cancer. She was in hospice. And so that just was so amazing to me, that this man who I thought I knew was capable of, at the time I felt abandoned, and that he was capable of doing that, especially during the time where I really wanted and needed him the most to help me and support me. And not just me, it was my family. He was very close to my family, our children. And it just was like, what? My mom's dying and you're out pursuing another relationship. How is that possible? And so, that's what happened. And that was in October.
Lisa, there's just going to be so many people. Number one, there's going to be so many people who are like, yes, I totally understand this person completely changing. That happens. And it's just so mind-boggling to the brain, because we think that the person we meet and marry in the beginning is going to stay the same person throughout our entire relationship, which doesn't seem to be the case. We change.
Right.
Right. But
Right.
yes, that dramatic change is so wild. So then also, the affair.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about this today. How angry were you? Were you pretty angry?
So that's just it. Like, the last couple of years or so were not fun for me. I mentioned, though, I never would have left him. It was that affair that prompted me to take action. But I was so angry, Dorothy. I can't even describe my anger. I have never been so angry in my life. And it wasn't just to him, it was also to his family. I was so angry with his family because, to me at that time, I felt like they were not sticking up for me or my daughters. That not that I was expecting anybody to take sides, but I was hoping somebody would demand from this man to do the right thing. Okay, your marriage is not healthy and you want out. There's a healthy way to end a marriage. And pursuing another relationship while your daughter's grandmother's dying and your wife's mother's dying might not be the right thing to do. Instead, his family's mantra was, we just want him to be happy. We want you to be happy. We want him. It's so, like, they jumped on board with wanting him to be happy. And that just pissed me off, because I'm like, his happiness is coming at an incredibly destructive price. Why doesn't anybody stand up to him and demand him to at least do the right thing now? And
Yes.
so I was so angry at him, his family. Oh my gosh. I can't even describe in terms what that felt like to me at that time.
I really resonate with that, because it reminds me of when my ex moved on so quickly and he posted that picture. And I'm like, literally, how come the world does not see or say anything? How come everyone is totally okay with this not okay situation? And there were no breakup police to be like, here's a ticket. Right. We're writing you a ticket for doing this, like, so wrong. And it's just so fascinating, right? Because I remember that feeling of being like, you guys, that was me in his profile photo just a day ago. So why are we okay with this new girl in his profile photo? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Right. And yours is on a whole other level, because you've got a family mixed in with that. You've got your daughters to be thinking about. It's a marriage. It was 24 years. So I just find that so, like, I'm so glad that you said that, because I mean, that was one of the biggest obstacles that you talked about when it was coming, you were coming into the Get Over Your Ex program, was anger, to stop being angry and having conversations with your ex in your
Mhm.
head were like two of your really important goals, we'll call them.
Yeah.
So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about this. What happened? How did you overcome this? And,
Mhm.
there are plenty of other people who are also probably struggling with this same um, anger piece. What would you tell them?
All right. So we'll start off with the beginning when it was happening and I was in it. So I did some things I wasn't proud of. You know, like I threw some of his stuff away and I would text him scathing text messages and emails, or I'd call him and scream at him. And I was becoming a person I didn't want to be. And I recognized pretty quickly, I've got to be a role model for my daughters. God forbid they ever go through anything like this. How would I want them to show up? How would I want them to react? And so I started with therapy. I put myself in therapy, which at the time was very helpful. It ran its course, but it was helpful to at least help me get a hold of that anger and funnel it to someone other than my immediate friends and family, who I know were just probably getting sick and tired of me ranting all the time. In addition to therapy, though, I started doing what I've heard you do. I Googled everything, like how to get over your ex, how to forget and forgive, how to, get over an affair, how to deal with a midlife crisis, like all the things that are on Google. And I wasn't finding any, I don't know, tools, anything specific that was applicable. And so a friend of mine sent me a link to your podcast, and I listened to the link, and it was actually um, you were being interviewed on another podcast, and so that brought me to your podcast. And for like 3 days, I binged. I listened to every single one of your podcasts. I took note. I have pages and pages of notes from those podcasts. I'm like, this is what I need. This is exactly what I need. Oh my gosh, And I remember rewriting my breakup story. I remember writing my old story, and there was like a lot of victim mentality going on. I'm like, but that's not really how it was. I made the choice to kick him out. I made the choice to ask for a divorce. And I'm truly now seeing that this happened for me, because I was miserable, but I never would have left if it weren't for that affair. And
Hold
so,
on, pause.
yeah,
Can we just repeat what you just said? I would have never left if it wasn't for that affair. And can you imagine
yeah,
living, let's say you live to 100, could you imagine living another 50 years
mm-mm,
in that kind of relationship, living that life? That is your day to day life. We do not need to discredit that. Day to
mm-hmm,
day, living in a life that is, well, I want to like phrase it as less than, but we won't even go that far. But
mm-hmm,
just being in a relationship with someone you don't know and don't like and don't
yeah,
enjoy. That's so painful. It's comfortable and it's familiar, but it's
right.
a painful comfort and familiar.
Mm-hmm.
So wild.
It is wild, and I mean, I don't know. Looking back, I do see this as a blessing, and I do truly believe it happened for me. But when I was in it, I was in it, and I am vows meant something to me. I'm very committed to the promises I make. And I'm not a religious person, but I'm a spiritual person. And we got married in a church, and I made vows before God and family. And I was going to stick with those vows. And, I probably should have left sooner, but it took that affair to give me the motivation I needed to say, okay, this is it, because I have non-negotiables too. And that's another lesson I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah. And kind of even talking about that spiritual component, because you're not the only one.
Mhm.
We, like, a lot of us feel that the vows that we make, the promises that we make, we take them serious, we're loyal, all of that. It's a hard pill to swallow. And I think with that, though, I always come back to, does, whether you believe in God or the universe, use that word in
Mhm.
whatever way, that whatever higher power, do we really think that the higher power what they want us to do is stay in a relationship that we're not valued in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, and I just don't think that that's what God or the universe would want for me.
Right.
And so I go back, we talk about this a lot in the program around trust, is when I'm trying really hard for something that I think is what God wants me to do or the universe wants me to do, that's when the universe, God, puts something in front of me that is so glaringly obvious for
Mm-hmm.
me to redirect, course correct. Right?
Yes, 100%.
So wild. Okay. So you mentioned in terms of the anger,
Mhm.
you started seeing everything is happening for you. But what else? Tell us what
Mhm.
were the other ways that you overcame the anger, and what might
Yeah.
you tell someone who's experiencing that?
So it started with binging the podcast, but I needed more. So I did the 5-day boot camp. And that was such a game changer, huge game changer for me. And then after that, I was on the fence of if I was going to sign up for the full program or not, because I still felt like, man, 24 years, I'm 51, this, I don't know if this is for me. Can this really help me? I think I've learned everything I could in the boot camp and I was on a plane. Where was I going? Don't even remember. Work, listening to one of your more recent podcasts. And I was just like, I've got to sign up. Like, I have not gotten enough out of the tools and resources available to me. Why wouldn't I do this? Why wouldn't I go all flipping in? And so I did. I think I signed up on the plane. I was just so excited. And so when we asked about goals, one of my number one goal was to get over the anger. And I was having conversations in my head constantly with my ex and his family of everything I wanted to tell them because I was so angry and I just wanted to set them straight and I wanted to make them understand and see how wrong they were. And those conversations were not helpful. They weren't helping me move forward. And so one of the big tools very early on in coaching is you asked me to track those conversations and track my anger, like when I was escalating anger. And that would help me monitor my progress. So that was one thing that was very helpful. And then going back to the initial tools, doing some grief work and feeling my feelings, I recognized I really wasn't doing that. What I was doing instead, I would feel myself get angry or feeling grief, and then I would go distract myself. And I realized that wasn't helping, that wasn't serving me. And so getting comfortable with sitting in that, I call it a negative emotion, was a huge challenge. And I forced myself. And it just started with simple things like naming the feeling, which sounds so silly, but it helped me. I'd sit there and say, okay, what are you feeling, Lisa? What are you feeling? Anger. Okay. Is this really anger? No, it's grief. It's grief. You're grieving. And I would sit there and repeat it and talk to myself and not instead go distract and repress and not deal with it. And after a while of doing that, I recognized I was getting less and less angry. And then really focusing on my new breakup story and the thought work involved, retraining my brain by coaching myself. What's an alternative possibility here? What else could this mean? Is that really true? Come on, if that weren't the case, what would it be? And using all these great coaching tools, I use them in HR. I just wasn't using them on myself. And so it forced me to do that. And then but taking steps forward, so being able to visualize what my future could be and what I would do and what I wanted, what did I truly want. I recognized I gave up so much of myself by compromising to keep the peace. And then seeing like little things and big things like buying a house, and making it my own and picking out my own colors and my own appliances. Huge. what? I get to make this decision myself. and,
Isn't that
and
so fun? Literally, it's like one of my
yeah,
favorite parts of when someone's going through a breakup. I'm like, oh my gosh, think about all the things that you get to do and not compromise at all. Not even for the littlest tiny things. You get to go all in on you and what you want. And it feels
mhm.
so good.
Yes, yes. And my daughters have been such a huge support to me too. And I've loved including them in some of these decisions and giving them a voice. And I mean, they're just rock stars. They are amazing humans with such resilience and grit. And I love showing up for them the best version of myself. And I see in them pieces of me, but even so much better. And hopefully they'll never have to go through what I went through. If they do, though, they'll certainly be more equipped than I was.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Okay, so someone who's experiencing anger, for sure they need to get good at feeling the anger and not distracting from it, which is so much easier to distract from it. And we don't even realize we're doing it a lot of the time. So, okay,
Yes.
I
Yes.
love it. So then let's talk about something that I noticed in you right away from the get-go. It was so cool. This is one of my favorite, I don't know if you would call it a quality about you, but like it was one of my favorite things about Lisa that just like pulled you apart from a lot of individuals. But right away, you went all in on celebrating yourself. And
Mm.
I feel like this aided in your success. And I feel like it helped you even migrate through the content quicker and do the work quicker. It was just so cool to see. So, can you share with everyone how you celebrated and how can others kind of celebrate themselves during a time like divorce? Because it's also just like a
Sure.
foreign concept. We wouldn't think about saying, congratulations on your divorce. How do you celebrate during a time like this? And
Oh
I
my goodness.
please share it with everyone.
So I'm going to have to take a breath because I get this from my late mother. And oh, I miss her so much. But she was the queen of celebration, Dorothy. She was always celebrating everything: birthdays, anniversaries, good grades, potty training. She taught my daughters how to use the go potty training, and she would bake a cake and throw them a party. Like, this woman was the queen of celebrating the little things and the big things. She baked a cake for every stinking occasion. And so I get that from her. She was such an amazing human being. And I feel like that's a trait that I could use to stay motivated and stay true to myself, in the big and the small things. And so, I try to celebrate big things and small things along the way. So, you know, big things, I bought a house. That was huge. And so to celebrate the day we closed, I took my brother and his best friend to dinner because they did a lot of the renovation work on the house, and we celebrated, and I bought a painting off the wall in the restaurant that night to celebrate and bring back to my home the day that we closed. So, the home is the big thing, but like that painting is a smaller thing, but it's a memento to celebrate. I closed on my house, and then with the girls, sending them text messages and or funny videos and snapping them all the time to celebrate their wins and keep them motivated. Um, and family is so important to me. And I have an amazing family. My father, who is still grieving the loss of his wife, and my two brothers and their families, like, we come together, and now I'm taking over the party planner role. My mom was such an excellent hostess. And so even in holidays, like, finding ways to bring everybody together, decorate. I love decorating the house. Um, and just, celebrating with family and people who are important to me. My favorite celebration, though, Dorothy, I threw myself a reverse bachelorette party.
Yes. I was like, when is she going to say it? She better say it. It's like my favorite
Yeah.
part.
And so, in fact, I can't even take credit for the idea. One of my closest friends had a dream, and she texted me and called me that it was like 7:30 in the morning. She's like, "Oh my God, Lisa, I had this dream. We were celebrating you. It was and she described it in detail. And I said, Deb, we're going to do this. Game on. I'm going to run with this. And like by the end of the day, the whole weekend was planned. I had people coming in from out of town. 22 of my closest friends came for the weekend. And we just threw the biggest party and celebrated and had so much fun. And it was an incredibly humbling but empowering experience for me as I was beginning this new chapter of my life, this journey to have such a good tribe of people and such diverse people too. I mean, the diversity in the group was also incredibly inspiring. But yeah, so to your point though, to tell others, look for little things first. Find the joy and the wins in small ways. Is it an hour that goes by that you didn't stalk his social media? That's a win. You know,
Huge
go
win. Huge win. Mm-hmm.
yes, and do small little things and then look for the bigger things to celebrate. You know, throw a big potluck party and invite your friends over, your family over. You know, it could be the beginning of summer or the end of summer or whatever. Just, I don't know. That's how my mom was. And that's something that I will continue to do until I'm no longer able to. Have to celebrate.
I love it. I'm so glad she taught you that because it's such a beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful thing to do. And
And
you
I'm
guys,
still planning celebrations, Dorothy. Sorry to cut you off, but I'm taking my daughters to Hawaii in a week.
so exciting. I love that. Yes,
I know.
100%. And you guys, here's the cool thing about celebrating. You can never celebrate yourself too much because here's what happens. The more you celebrate, the more things you create in your life to celebrate, right? Because what we focus on, we create more of. So if you focus on celebrating and progress, you're only going to create more things to celebrate
Mhm.
and progress versus sometimes we think like, oh, I can't celebrate myself because I haven't arrived yet. I'm not completely over my ex. It doesn't work that way. You've got to celebrate what some people call small things, like going an hour without stalking the social media, or even just going an hour without thinking about your ex. Those are important milestones that should be celebrated. And we're not used to celebrating them out in society. So we definitely
Mhm.
for sure do it out in the Get Over Your Ex program.
Yeah.
But you absolutely could be doing this with your friends and your family and those close to you. So I love
Mhm.
that. Thank you. Okay, so let's also talk about the dream life because you are so good at sharing photos with us in the community, and I'm
Mhm.
obsessed. And I feel like you're truly like living the dream life, and I love it. A life that's bigger than the one that you had with your ex. So
Mhm.
tell us about it. How did you get there? What were some of the big ahas that took, place to help you get to that, place for yourself?
Sure.
And what would you maybe tell someone who's struggling with attachment to thinking that their dream life isn't available without their ex, all of that? Let's kind of have a conversation about it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's a few things to unpack there, and I love posting happy moments and sharing happy experiences. But to be real, I've had bad days. I still have bad days. I still like just a few days ago, I was driving and I was like, all of a sudden, WTF? Like, what? And so, it's not always this like dream world. But I handle those moments so much better because I have the tools and I'm not repressing, I'm not distracting, and I'm not impulsive anymore. Like it's even the bad days are better. But after 24 years of marriage, I know I'm still going to have, it's probably going to be years. I'm still going like, what? What? Um, but I do 100% believe that my divorce happened for me. And one of the biggest ahas, and I realized this, is when one of my baby brother said, "I don't think I've ever seen you happier. I don't. It seems like there's this weight off of you, and you just seem to have more joy and more happiness." And it was a big aha for me because it was like putting a mirror up to me, saying, because I felt like, man, people probably look at me as like the grieving ex and poor Lisa and my brother's like, I've never seen you happier. And so that was a big aha for me. And then just living the dream life, getting really clear on what I wanted. I had lost myself a little bit in the marriage by compromising everything just to keep the peace. And it wasn't a huge deal for me to say, okay, you know, little things like, what are we going to eat for dinner? Or what movie are we going to watch? I usually gave in and was okay with that. And big things like we redecorated our backyard and put in a patio. I wanted a hot tub. He didn't want a hot tub. We did not get a hot tub. Guess what I have now? I have a flipping hot tub. So,
Yes, it's the small things and the big things, really, though. Like, even just an afternoon of like, I just really want to have the afternoon of watching this reality TV show. And he didn't want to do that. And you would get stuck watching football or something. I think that
exactly.
it's so wild. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then getting really clear on what I wanted and going back and really thinking about what's been on my bucket list that I haven't done and revisiting those things and making those decisions. So getting really clear on what I wanted, envisioning what my life could be. And I truthfully haven't even explored all of that yet. I'm really still in that exploration process because I know there's some things that are going to happen that are bigger and better than I even expect or realize right now. But I believe it. And so that's the first step. Like when you say, what would you tell someone going through this? If you've been married for many, many years like me, and you're dealing with an extreme heartbreak or betrayal, just make the decision to get over your ex. That's the first step. Don't sit too long in the wallowing and the hoping and the waiting for them to come back. Make the decision that you're going to get over it and move on. That's the first thing. You've got to make that decision. And some people are not going to be ready to decide that right away, but the sooner you make that decision, then you start taking baby steps. And it's like, it's not even daily. It's like minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, you take one step forward to getting over it. And then join the program because I'm in human resources. I'm supposed to be good at people problems, and maybe I am with other people's problems, but I needed the tools and the resources for myself and the practicality. Like I love Dorothy's program because it's step by step. She teaches the theory and I love brain science stuff. I'm a geek that way. But then here's what I want you to do. X, Y, Z, those practical things, and then do them and just take it day by day, step by step, because if I can get over my ex having an affair when my mother was dying after 24 years of marriage, I'm telling you, just about anybody could with the right tools and the right support. So that's what I would say.
And not only did you like get over it, but you're like thriving from it because of it. Isn't that so crazy?
It is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy.
I'm so happy for you. So, so excited. Is there anything else you want to share with the Bravehearts who might be, oops, I don't know if you can hear my dog. Yes, Tink, you are tired. If there's anything else that you want to share with the Bravehearts listening, let us know. Is there anything else?
So the other thing I was thinking about is some people are so extremely attached, and I get that. I was pretty fortunate. I wasn't super attached by the time I came into the program. My desire was pretty low. My attachment was still, and mostly because we have children together. And so I still feel a little attached because we're co-parenting. But I would say if you're scared that you're never going to get him or her back, or they're never going to be in your life, that's okay. And it's understandable. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the case for you. I know people who've been through divorce who are still friends with their exes. I know people who've been through divorce who've gotten back together with their exes. And then I know people like me, I've chosen not to have my ex in my life. I don't like him. You know, his character, his values don't align with mine, but he's the father of my children, and I respect him for that. And I, more than anything, desperately want him to be a great father. And so I will always support him and be there for him, father being the father to our children. But I don't want to have a barbecue with him or have him over, you know, for cocktails. Other people may be in a situation though where that's completely fine. And the thing is, there is, don't do it for those reasons. Go through the program and get over your ex so you can build a life for you. And then if the ex is part of it, either as a friend or as a renewed partner, great. But it's still about building a life for you. And then recognizing that people are watching. If you have children, how do you want to show up for them? And how would you want them to go through something like this? God forbid, if they ever had to go through a situation, what would you want for them? You would want them to have the biggest, best life possible. You would want them to move on upward and achieve dreams bigger than they would have if they stayed in that relationship. So do that for them and the people who love you, to model it for them and show them the way.
Oh, so good. I'm so glad you brought up that. I think it's so important to think about, how would you want your children to show up? What would you tell them in that scenario, and play from that experience? I love it. Thank you so much, Lisa. I really appreciate your time. I know the Bravehearts listening really appreciate you and all of the amazing advice that you gave them. They're going to be able to take this, run with it, and it'll help them through their divorce. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. I appreciate you, Dorothy, so much.
If you're loving the How to Get Over Your Ex podcast and you want to learn how to get over your ex and build a life bigger and better than the one you had with your ex, I would love to personally invite you to take this work deeper at breakupcoachdorothy.com/next steps.